Welcome back to another episode of Just Jossin Around. My guest today, live from Chicago, we have Korey David.
Hey, good to catch up with some pals from Omaha.
Yeah, this is so exciting. That's a thing I've been like utilizing with the podcast is just reaching out to people because not everyone wants to come to Omaha and wants to come to our studio, so I have to.
Their loss.
Yeah, it is their loss. You came here for Comedy Fest last year.
Yeah, I was at the Omaha Comedy Festival, and then I usually try to make it out there like once a year. I mean, just because the shows are really good, and I love hanging out with you guys, and then like hanging out with Zach, and it's really, I mean, there's definitely places that maybe on paper they don't seem very exciting or appealing to go to, but most of it's the people, you know, the other comics that are there, friends. Like Albuquerque's an absolute dump, right? I fear for my life every time I walk down the street there. But there's really great friends there. There's really great comics. There's a cool club. So there's reasons to go. But if it wasn't for comedy, I probably wouldn't be visiting because every time you walk down the street in Albuquerque, I fear I'm going to get stabbed. I'm probably going to get stabbed. I don't have that much here because I'm white, or at least in Omaha. I did almost get stabbed in Chicago the first time I came here, though.
But I do believe that.
Yeah.
I lived in Alamogordo, which is like 3 hours from Albuquerque, and it was living in New Mexico that made me buy my first like self-defense tools. Like I had a baton. I was like, I'm not walking around
like a twirly baton, like they have a marching band, or
you fling it out. It's like I don't know what you call that.
Like a police baton.
A police baton, and you can like extend it and just. I mostly had it. I was running a lot, and there were coyotes, and so it was just in case one came up on me, I needed it.
I was imagining you like trying to ward off defenders with like a snazzy routine.
I that could have been more useful. That's so funny.
I'm gonna razzle dazzle you away.
But none of that in Omaha. I will say Omaha is a little bit not the safest, but safer.
Yeah.
Safer.
I think, it's a small enough city. People know their neighbors, and it's a wholesome way of life. I will say Chicago is definitely
wholesome.
Yeah, Chicago's a little more hectic. It's the Manhattan of the Midwest, the Paris of the Plains, if you will. So there's a lot of riffraff running around, but it's a very exciting city. I love that this place actually has culture.
Yeah.
Denver is very vacant of any like real culture, to be honest.
Culture is breweries and hiking.
Yeah, it's weed, beer, and there's mountains over there that half the people that live there don't even really get into or explore very often. We try to be really good about going at least every couple times a summer. We just went, we were up in Grand Lake, which is about a 2-hour drive. Last weekend for a jam band that I'm not particularly fond of. I mean, most jam bands for me, it's the same song for about an hour and a half. But my friends have a house up there because they're rich, and you know, I might never be rich, but I'll always have rich friends.
That's right.
And rich people love a comic. They're like, this guy will say anything, you know. It's all the stuff that they wish they could say. Yeah. It's not even bad. You're not even saying anything bad. You're like, this guy's got a dumb hat. And they're like, ah!
He's great. Invite him again.
Yeah.
So you're in Chicago, though. You got asked to come out to a festival last minute? That's what I heard.
So I'm helping out a little bit with the Hub City Festival that Daniel Van Kirk is running. It's the first time they're doing it. It's a pretty loose festival in the sense that like it was put together by Daniel, who just has some great ties to Chicago, and he wanted to do something fun, just basically put on a big event for the week. And so I'm doing some spots out here, and I'll be helping with some photography stuff. So I'll be heading there tonight. Actually, they only have like the one, maybe two shows tonight.
Got it.
And I'm like on 2 shows tomorrow, 1 show tomorrow, 2 shows Saturday. And I think it seems pretty loose in the sense that it's just a bunch of people coming to hang out. And there's a lot of great comics in Chicago. So I don't think it was one of those. It wasn't like an apply to kind of thing where they were taking people from everywhere. And the only person that I can think of that's coming in from out of town is Adam Caton Holland. He has a show tomorrow night. Yeah. And that's the thing, is like they're just buddies, right? So it's just friends hanging out with friends, which is what the benefit to most comedy festivals is, just hanging out with other comics and mingling. A friend of mine just did her first comedy festival. It was like the Boulder Festival, and the woman that runs it, she's awesome, and I heard the shows were great, but she was coming in from LA
Hmm.
And I was like, well, how was it? Give me a recap. And she said, the festival itself was fun, but nobody was really hanging out afterwards. So
So
all the
weird.
nights were just kind of quiet. And I was just like,
Yeah.
oh, that sucks. That's like the best part,
Yeah.
really. Because
Exactly.
any festival that doesn't have good hangout space, I'm just not particularly interested in. Because
Yes.
that winds up being the most fun part.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like last year I ended up getting on for Omaha Comedy Fest. I got on like one show, but it was like I was there every night, just like hanging out with
Yeah.
comics because I'm like, everyone's in town and everyone's out, and also there is actually cool things to do and go out and do together.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I happened a couple years ago. This happened to me twice. So I was down in Austin pre-pandemic
Mhm.
at the same time that the Altercation Festival was going on.
Okay.
So I had a bunch of booked shows, and then that was also happening. So when I didn't have anything going on, I would just shoot over to Altercation and basically reap all of the benefits of being on Altercation without actually
Yeah.
having to submit anything. Like I didn't do a show, but like I met a bunch of cool people. I ran into some friends I hadn't seen in a while.
Mhm.
So made all the connections, if you will, big
The
business
networking.
networking. Yeah, I handed out my resume and some business cards, and then I did the same thing
Mhm.
in Atlanta. I just happened to be there during Laughing Skull, and then
Okay.
even wound up jumping on a show that somebody was running. So then everybody's like thinks I made Laughing Skull. It's like no, 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 no. They
No.
don't want me. But I'm at least a good enough hang
Yes.
that I get to go to the after parties and
Yeah.
whatever else. That's like the fun part.
That's funny. I feel like I always ask like comics that I have on because I feel like everyone has different philosophies on like how they feel about festivals. Some comics are like, F a festival, I'm not submitting, I'm not paying $30. But then there's
Mhm.
like comics like you are like, go for the networking and like to make the connections, which is important.
I think it's important to everybody at different stages of their
Yeah.
career. Like if you don't travel much and
Yeah.
get on, like I try to travel a lot. Like I try
Yeah.
to get on the road every few weeks, every 6 to 8 weeks minimum. And so it's not as important to me for that value. But if you don't travel a lot
Mhm.
and a festival is what's going to get you to Asheville or get you to Austin or someplace else, then there's no harm in I really don't feel like there's any harm in applying. I
Yeah.
would say that you're better off applying to ones that have been around for a while because at least it's going to be a good experience
Yep.
for you instead of if it's a new one. Not to say that all new ones are bad. Like I did the Vale Comedy Festival a couple of years ago, and that was amazing. It was the
Yeah.
first year, yeah, it was first year they did it, and there was lodging for everybody. We were
That's
right in the
awesome.
mountains. There was food, there was
Is that
drinks.
where was that? I know I've seen like the marketing for that, but I don't know where that one's at.
It's in a little place called Vale, Colorado. The Vale
Oh,
Comedy
it's in
Festival in
Colorado.
Vale,
Okay,
Colorado. Yeah.
you're like the name of the festival.
Yeah.
That's funny.
It's not a nickname or nothing.
No.
So they can be good, but like the buyer beware if you are going to submit and go to a festival is
Mhm.
how many shows are they running? Are they helping you with lodging?
Yep.
Is there any accommodations in terms of food and drinks and stuff like that? So it's a great opportunity to meet other people, maybe do some shows out of town, but yeah, you got to temper your expectations based on what ones you're applying to.
Yeah. I will say you are always on the road, but I always see interrogated. It seems like interrogated pop-ups have been more prevalent. You just did, it was probably a while ago now, but I saw that you had a spot like out in LA for interrogated.
Yeah, so important distinction I will say before we say anything about that.
Yes.
Interrogated is the improv group at the backline
Oh,
in
what am I?
Omaha. Interrogation, I didn't know either. I didn't know until we did the comedy festival last year. And I was like, these idiots put the name of
Oh
the show on the
no.
flyer twice. I'm like, and they
Yeah.
did one wrong. So I
Oh
had no
no.
idea. I had no idea that was a thing. I apologize, Dylan. I think it's part of his improv group.
That's so
Uh,
funny.
yeah, I had no idea.
So you are
So
interrogation.
yeah, that
Different.
one. Yeah, very important
Very different.
distinction
That's
that
so funny.
nobody's gonna know or care
Oh
about.
my gosh.
Yeah, so I've been touring with the show for about
Mhm.
2 years now. There was actually a point where I wasn't even doing the show in Denver. I was just doing it on the road,
That's so sick.
and it's been a mixed bag of success and failure, which I hope and wish we get a string of good shows
Yeah.
together, but this year just has not been that. It's I will say it's all been good experience. Part of my plan for this year was to tour to like a few specific cities to see if
Mhm.
I can go there again, like, and try to do the same cities 2 or 3 times in a
Yeah.
year, as opposed to last year. What I did was I basically went everywhere once. So it's more cities, but I was just trying to see. I think everybody's mind when you start touring and whatnot is you're supposed to go everywhere.
Yeah.
And that can be good, but I wanted to try. Let's go to Portland, LA, Chicago, and Houston, and try to go back a couple times as
Yeah.
opposed to spreading it out kind of everywhere.
Yeah.
So LA and Chicago sucked. They were not good.
Okay.
They
How was it more like, was it like the show? Because I feel like I'm speaking from personal experience being on there. I feel like when you, as a comic going up, after telling my story, I was like, whoa, buzzkill. So I feel like you're relying on comics to like come up with like almost like a new set of material or jokes that they aren't as polished, and it can go two ways.
Mhm. Well, it can go either way. So the comics are telling they tell their stories about a
Yeah.
crime, right? Something that happened to them, maybe somebody they know, whatever. But the stories don't have to be funny. It
Mhm.
helps if they are,
Yeah.
but because I think it's because it's the tone of it's a true crime storytelling show. A decent chunk of the fans that we get to come out are true crime people. They're not necessarily
Really more
even
than comedy.
I mean, it's a mix. It's an
Yeah.
honest mix. I
Makes
do
sense
believe
though.
because it's a storytelling show, it's already kind of baked in that this isn't going to be, stand up. It's not laughs
True.
every 30 seconds or anything. But that's one of the reasons why we do the Q&A and
Mhm.
the text portion afterward. So we can kind of force the funny to happen there. We can
Yeah.
at least try our best because we
Yeah.
have 3 people on stage. And I always tell everyone, just say the dumbest thing that comes
Yeah.
to your mind, and then we'll try to piggyback on top of it, right? So
Yeah.
that way, it's kind of podcast style in that way. We're basically just getting prompts from the audience, whether it's through the questions or the text messages, and we're just trying to goof around
Yeah.
and have as much fun with it as possible. So the show, I'm never worried about the quality of the show because I know we can manufacture a good
Yes.
time. The hardest thing is ticket sales. Like it's
Oh,
especially
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
and particularly in cities like Chicago and LA,
Mhm.
there's so much to do and there's so much comedy that yeah, we just had bad turnouts for
Yeah.
both of them. The LA show, I will say, we only wound up with like 20, but it was good. They were like a fun crowd,
Yeah.
and everybody had a great time. Chicago, on the other hand, boy howdy, we were in like the big room at Lincoln Lodge, which I'd
Yeah.
never seen before. And I also didn't realize how DIY Lincoln Lodge actually is. Like, you
Yeah.
have to run your own tickets, you have to do your own
Oh,
sound,
really? That's
you have to do
crazy.
your own lights, like you have to do everything. So I'm
Oh,
showing up with like 12 tickets sold. So I'm already frazzled. I get there, nobody knows me. They're like, "Who's this piece of shit?"
yeah.
And then I have to scramble to like get the room set up. And they have the big room. It's cool. Have you been to Lincoln Lodge?
No, I've only seen videos.
It's great. It's a great venue. It's a cool
Yeah.
space. Their big room's probably about 100 seater, but it's small for 100 seater. So like
Yeah.
there's tons of chairs just everywhere. So when there's only 12 people in there, it looks so ominous. Everybody is like, where is everyone?
Yeah.
Like, where is everybody else? As opposed to if you had 12 people in a 40-person room, you're like, okay, there's not a ton of people here, but it's a small show. We've never heard of this. We can contain the energy a
Mhm.
little bit. So it kind of just felt eerie the whole
Yeah.
time. And on top of that, so we're staying at my girlfriend's relative's place right now. They're out of
Mhm.
town and we're kind of house sitting for them as well. So we're going to be here for like a week and a half. That's why this actually all kind of
Oh,
worked
that
out.
that
Like
worked out
super,
perfect. Yeah.
worked out great. So they came to that show and I just couldn't help but think, because they'd never seen me do comedy
Yeah.
before. They don't
Oh,
even know what my show is. And I'm like, wow, they must think, well, this is a fun little hobby
yeah.
Sarah's boyfriend has. He's always doing this full time. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. This is his thing. Great. That's adorable.
Oh, that's funny. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But I will say, so to counter that, Houston was great. I've done
Yeah.
Houston more than I've done any other city.
Mhm.
And Portland was great. We did Portland and Salem. Both shows went very well. So that's what I meant by I wish it'd be nice to string a couple big wins together,
Yeah.
because it's been this incredible roller coaster of extreme highs and
Mhm.
very low lows. And I
Yeah.
haven't had like a ton of even like middle ground. So like the show, so we do the show month. I apologize if I'm talking too much about it, but it's
No, this is why you're here, Korey.
yeah, I got you. I love the sound
You're
of my own voice,
killing. Yeah.
especially for headphones. So, and that's one of the hard things about producing and like running your own show on the road. And I talked to Zach Toscani about this when I
Yeah.
was in Portland, and I was like, you just talking about because he headlines everywhere, right? Like I don't headline everywhere that I go, but Zach usually
Mhm.
does. And we just talked about the difference between just showing up and doing spots and running your own show. And if
Oh,
you're
yeah.
headlining, like that's your show. Like you
Yeah.
have to sell, you are now responsible for selling tickets to that show. And if you don't sell X amount of tickets, you're going to lose money on this
Yeah.
show. Comedy's already a losing endeavor anyway, right? Like
Yes.
going to, it's pretty rare unless you're a big name and you're selling tickets that you're going to wind up in the positive on a lot of the trips that you're going on, right?
Yeah.
Fortunately for me, Omaha is one of those places because people love koozies,
Yeah.
and I can sell those. But it changes the game entirely. You know,
Mhm.
I think it's really hard to move tickets in other places unless you
Yeah.
have a big following. It's so much easier and way less stress to
Yeah.
just show up and do a showcase, you know, or maybe headline a show. But like if you're doing it at a small venue, the pay for that's probably only what, like $100, maybe
Yeah.
150 realistically,
Yeah.
depending on where you go. So, and then there's small clubs and stuff. But yeah, it's all this progression to try to get more gigs and higher paying gigs. But when you're producing and running your own thing, there's a higher ceiling on what you have the potential to make. So
Yeah.
if I'm doing a door deal with a venue, that's potentially way more money than me just doing a spot for like $50 for like 10 or
Yeah.
15 minutes
And
or
the
whatever it is.
stress, yeah, it's like, is it worth it after doing all of that? I will say I was talking to last week I had on Morgan Gallo, who was also kind of talking about how like even if you do have the following and you know you get these like headliner things, it doesn't always translate to ticket
Mhm.
sales. And I
Yeah.
feel like I mean with other friends that I know that are running shows, like I don't know if it's just like the summertime or whatever. It's just like it's so hard to there is so much to compete with, and also advertising in general, it's all in your face that it's like how do you market to someone specifically and it translate to them coming to your show?
I'm still trying to figure it
Yeah,
out. I wish there was a
for
rhyme or reason to
for
one
real.
thing working and one thing not, right? So
Yep,
I've done paid ads whenever I'm traveling. I do like the
yep,
paid ad things. I'm posting on all the event calendars. But then it's hard to so we run the show monthly at the space in Denver called Dude Eddie K, which is a very
yeah,
small it's a
yeah,
smaller like boutique style venue
mhm.
that has they're awesome. I
They
love
are
working
cool.
with them, but they're particularly I use them particularly for the YouTube channel. So like all of the shows that we film there are gonna live on the YouTube page, not even just for clips, but in episodes, kind of like
Mhm.
this is not happening.
Yeah,
And then we have our comedy work show that is also once a month, which is it's the big game in town. It's
yep.
having a show to run at Comedy Works is a dream, right?
Yeah, that's it's amazing. Congrats. That's
Thank
awesome.
you. Yeah. And I'm every time, no matter how many times I do this and where it is, I feel like a 12-year-old that's waiting for people to show up to their birthday party.
Yeah,
I'm just like, I just hope people come. I
that's
just hope people come. We have pizza. Like,
that's awesome. How many months have you been doing it at Comedy Works?
so this will be the third month. I actually have to
Sick.
fly back. I fly
That's
back
new,
next
that's
week
new.
just for the day
Yeah,
to do the show, and then I'm gonna fly back here Thursday morning. And then we have another show already booked for August, and I believe we have more dates coming. So Wendy's been like the owner's been really happy with the turnouts
yeah,
and with how the show works and the amount of effort that I put into marketing. I think that's ultimately what she cares about.
yeah.
And but all that to say, the like the Dude IDK show, the last one that
Mhm,
we had, like we were staring down the barrel of ticket sales that morning, and I just had to start giving tickets away for free.
mhm.
When in previous months we'd had like three sellouts in a row, we had a 75% capacity,
Wow.
And then it was just this one that I'm like, what's happening?
Yeah.
Right. And then the Comedy Works shows, we've had the exact same number of people at both of the previous ones. We had 120 come out to each show, which was I was thrilled with because they're weeknights. It's a new show. It's a South Club, which is in
Mhm.
the burbs. So that's when you said, oh, it's the summer. There's other things to do, and I'm like, I
Yeah.
agree with that. But then you're like, well, then what happened with the Comedy Works one? Well, then how come people are
True.
coming to that? So
Yeah.
it drives you freaking crazy trying
Yeah.
to figure out what or why works.
Also because I feel like your show is just such a perfect show for a lot to have that repeat crowd. Whereas like, there's a lot of stand-up shows that will have like the same comics on it and you're like, I've seen the material, but you have something that's just like so different every time that people are gonna want to keep coming back.
Yeah, I hope so. That's the thing. It's been too successful at this point to ignore it.
Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes people think like success is just automatically this. All right, then once you sell out one, you're
Mhm.
just going to start selling out all of them, and it
Yeah.
just hasn't been the case. But there's been too many wins at this point for me to feel like there's not something more here,
Er,
and there's something that I
absolutely.
shouldn't pay attention to and keep working on. Right? This
Mhm.
is a I know we have a lot of friends and know people that can kind of gain some kind of notoriety and fame overnight, especially now with social media.
Yeah.
But for the most part, things haven't really changed. You
Mhm.
still have to put in the work. It's usually going to take a while. You got to put in way more behind the scenes effort than people realize.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it's always been.
Yep.
We just have to do it differently now.
I agree. And I mean, we were kind of talking about that, before we started recording with like learning like all like the programming and stuff for editing and all the technology that you have to like know, I feel like to be a comic now. It's like
Hmm.
you're not just getting up and doing it's knowing how to market and advertise and be the IT person. There's a bunch of different skills that go into it that still make it
Yeah,
different.
you wind up being like, really good at a lot of things that have nothing
Exactly.
to do with comedy. But I
Literally.
mean, if comedy doesn't work out, then I mean, hey, you've got a pretty amazing set of skills to, I don't know, help
You can
somebody with
take
their
it
own.
literally anywhere. Like you can do even like I think that a lot of the skills that I've learned, like, if it's not benefiting me, I can help other comics with their social clips or helping
Mhm.
their social media. It's just like a tool that it helps everyone around you.
Yeah,
But
agreed. Like I'm really good at videography stuff now, and I'm
mhm,
really good at photography. Like I said, that's one of the things I'm helping out with this
yeah,
weekend. Like I'm not even doing any shows tonight. Like I'm literally just
just
going to
going.
help. Like just going to help take pictures
Yep,
and hopefully help somebody else that I like.
yep.
Uh, Not a mortal enemy or
Yeah,
something. Otherwise, I'd just take a bunch of
whatever.
feet pics and be like, "Yeah, they're up in the drive."
That's great. I did wanna ask, did you have any hand in Interrogation, you had put out a special for
Mhm.
on YouTube. Did you have any hand in that situation, that setting up for filming that?
Oh, what a nightmare that was. So, yes, I will say I did have a hand in it. And,
Yes.
well, when you're self producing something, yeah, it's self producing. That's what it is. You really are coming up with everything. And I kind of lucked into that situation a little because I'd been doing the show down in Houston before. And a friend of mine who I had not spoken to since college, I knew she lived down there and we just reconnected. And
Yep.
it turns out that her husband owns a production studio in Houston. And he came out to one of our shows, absolutely loved it. And he had mentioned that he's trying to break into some other industries because they mostly just do documentaries and local commercials, things of that nature. So he basically told me, listen, we'd love to film this. I can't do it for free, but I can do it for way less money
Produced, yeah,
than it would normally cost, right? So we set the date, and then it was just a lot of planning and booking the comics, setting up all the promotion. And
yeah,
then he was more or less responsible for the cameras, the lights, the sound, and just send me a bill and just tell me how much that's going to cost, right?
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, all of like literally everything like leading up to it, I had to book, booking flights and hotel and getting the comics there, making sure they're paid fairly, setting things up with the venue.
yeah,
And then the night of the show was a travesty to a certain degree.
yeah.
So, have you been to the Secret Group in Houston before?
No, I haven't.
It's a great club, love it. A good friend of mine owns the place, so I get down
Nice.
there quite a bit. but they had their sewage system back up like the night
Oh,
before.
no.
So the place
Yeah,
smelled rotten, right? So we
yeah.
get there the next morning. They have big fans going to try to clear the whole thing
Gross.
out. And do you remember when we did the show in Omaha? Do you remember I always have that like little siren
Oh,
thing with
yeah.
me?
Very memorable.
Most people hate it, but I love it. It's just like a police. It's a
Yeah.
little police siren noise thing that I just think makes it kind of fun. So I had brought my prop bag to the club earlier, like when we were just going to check in, see if there's anything we can do to help.
Mhm.
And we started hearing this noise, kind of like this wow, 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 wow. And it was pretty loud and it was going on for a long time. And eventually we leave to go back to the hotel just to kind of get ready. And the producer had told me, listen, if we can't figure this out, like we can't shoot we can't shoot this because the audio is going to be completely ruined.
Yeah.
So we're about an hour before the show starts, and I'm having an existential crisis in the hotel room because I'd put so
Yeah.
much work into this
Yeah.
thing.
Oh.
And I get a text from him,
Uh-huh.
and it was the siren. He's like, "Is this yours?" And I was like, "Yeah." And it was so the button had gotten pressed on the siren, and because it was in my prop bag, it was muffled, right? So it didn't sound like it normally sounds,
Yeah.
and it had been going on for hours, like for so much so that the combination between the noise and the smell was making the crew sick, you
Yeah.
know?
It's crazy. Oh my god, that's wild.
Yeah.
It's
So
crazy.
after we figured that out, smell
Yeah.
cleared out at least temporarily. The show went amazing. Couldn't have done any better. I'm critical of my own performance on that one just
Sure.
because I just had so many other things going
Yeah.
on. And that's something that I'd like to eventually get to with the show, even in its current state. I want
Yeah.
to make more money so I can hire people to
Yes.
do some of these things for me. You
Mhm.
know, yeah, of course, I'd like to make a little money on this
Yeah.
eventually, and I do now, depending on like ticket sales and whatever else. But
Yeah.
I ultimately want to be able to make enough that I can hire people to run the video, run the audio, do lights,
Mhm.
check people in, explain the show because I have to do that at the beginning of every show. I
Yeah.
want to have somebody. I want to be able to hire somebody that we can display the text messages that people send in like up on a screen and
Yeah.
have somebody filtering them for me. That's like one of
Yeah.
the reasons that I have a co-host is because as the audience members are sending in their own crime confessions, I'm going through the text messages in between comics to pick which ones we're going to talk about. So that way and I tell the co-host, I'm like, I need you to listen to the story at least for a little bit so
Yeah.
one of us knows what's happening here. And sometimes I can find some texts in a row that I'm like, okay, we can work with these.
Yep.
And then there's other ones that they're just like either not funny, too long, or a bummer. You know,
Yeah.
like, I'm like, I don't even know how we're gonna spin this.
I understand how, like, because you're like, wait, this is funny in my head, and then you're like, I trauma dumped on the entire audience, but
Well, I tell everybody just send in anything.
yeah,
Send in anything that comes to mind,
yeah,
right? Some of them are sad,
yeah.
and I don't usually like read those
No,
as much.
makes sense.
But yeah,
Wow.
doing again, kind of going back to
Yeah.
touring's all producing your own thing, and touring's like it's all on you. The special was
A
very much
lot.
all on me. I didn't have it sold or anything beforehand.
Mhm.
I just wanted to have a high quality proof of concept that I
Looks
could
great.
show people
Yeah.
if somebody ever came knocking, right?
Yeah.
If I ever had the chance to
Yeah.
pitch somebody or talk to somebody about the show that could give it more like a platform like a streaming platform or a production house or something, it's like cool, here it's already done, right? It's like
Yeah.
kind of like having a what do they call it, not a pamphlet but
It's like I don't know. It's like a. I know what you're saying. I know the word portfolio. Maybe.
no, like kind
No.
of like when you have like you have to submit for SNL.
Oh, like
Packet,
the
a
packet. Yeah.
packet. Yeah. So people always say, yeah,
Funny.
you can tell we both of us have never made one.
No.
You
No.
should. You should do it.
I don't know. Here's the thing, though. Here's why I probably won't, and it's because of things I've heard through the grapevine. I don't think I'm spilling any beans when I say that. Do you know Cameron logs in? And
Yeah.
when he,
Oh, that guy's got beans.
yeah.
He's got beans to spill.
Well, when he submitted, isn't it like a whole thing that if you submit it's like they now own whatever you send to them. So if you send them these ideas, it's like that's theirs now, and you're dismissed.
Yeah,
That's
I mean, are you going to try to make it out like this industry is full of benevolent people that aren't just like stealing people's ideas constantly?
so true.
This is the first time. Listen, I understand things are off shucks in Omaha, but that's not the way Hollywood works.
That's what's like the rude awakening of Omaha is so nice. Our community is so nice that I'm like, I will cry in the real world. This is a bubble.
No, the entertainment industry is somebody crawling on your back, grabbing your packet out of your hand as they shank you in the side, and then hoisting it up to a Warner's Brother exec and saying, I had a great idea.
Oh my God. Okay. Wow. That I feel so good. That is, yeah. I have no words. I have nothing to double back on that with.
Well, honestly, that's one of the reasons I like living in Denver, and the way the industry is right now, for as many things as I don't like about it, it's never been more true that you can just do your own thing and make it big on your own, and then wait until somebody swoops in to say, hey, we think this is a great idea. You don't have to like go into a pitch meeting or anything like that.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think of a great example, I guess, would be something, whether you love or hate the guy, Kill Tony is its own operating entity that makes millions of dollars, and he's not beholden to anybody, right? Like he can just do his own thing, as opposed to something like what happened with Ari Shafir with This Is Not Happening. So Comedy Central bought the rights to the show, which in my mind, hey, if anybody maybe even Comedy Central, which is, I don't know, just Beavis and Butthead and Office episodes now. If they were like, hey, here's $1 million, I'd be like, all right, well, I guess I'll sign my soul over.
Yes, literally.
But the counter to that is, if somebody's willing to pay you $1 million for that idea, then somebody else is probably going to be willing to pay you $5 million for that idea. You just might have to wait a little while.
Yeah.
Right? I guess it just really depends on the situation that you're in. And I would like to get to more of a place where it's like the Kill Tony model, where it just exists online. We can do live shows, and we sell a bunch of tickets to those. Because what happened with Ari is that I think he wanted to make some changes to the show, or he wanted to go a different way with it, and Comedy Central was like, well, screw you, you're out. And then that's when other people started taking over like the hosting responsibilities. So I mean, there's benefits to both, right? It's like one gives you an immediate platform that people are doing the legwork on. And Kill Tony's at least now at a point where he can hire so many people to help him with that show.
Yeah.
To do all of like the heavy lifting stuff in terms of the editing and the promotion, and he can hire a band and do all this fun stuff, right? But that takes money, or people willing to help you for very little money. But that's not everybody.
So you say that you go down to Austin a bunch because you have a pal that's got a good venue. All right. So and you brought up Kill Tony.
Houston. I go to Houston a lot.
Okay, never mind. But
not as glamorous. Not as. It's a swamp. Gross, hot. This hair doesn't do well in humidity. Houston in August is a nightmare.
I was gonna ask though, have you ever thrown your name? Have you ever been in the area?
Yes, my hair is real. That's a question. Next question. No. It's a lot. It's a lot of it.
Well, that question was probably a lot better than what I was going to ask, but it was just, have you thrown your name in the hat for Kill Tony?
No, I haven't been back to Austin since before the pandemic. I had went down right before the pandemic and was running a show. I did this show one time called House Party that I was talking to one of the owners of Creek in the Cave, who's a buddy of mine. Colton Dowling. If he has a great podcast and stuff, look him up if you can.
Will do.
What's that?
Oh, I just said will do. Like
will do. Yeah, I was gonna say all right. Yeah. And he was in Denver one time, and we were just talking about show concepts that we'd both been thinking of. And I came up with this thing called House Party that was based on the show Power Hour. Have you ever seen that?
The only Power Hour I know of is the one hosted at Backline, which is like every comic gets like 5 minutes.
Oh, okay. So this one was Brett Hiker, and I believe Sarah Kennedy came up with it. But it's basically In the course of an hour, there's different kind of comedy games that people play, and they have to
All right.
drink based on whether they win or lose and whatever. So it's kind of loosely based on that. And I wanted to do kind of like college drinking games
Yeah.
mixed in with some stand up and improv stuff. It sounded really fun on paper. It was bad. It was pretty because you realize that a lot of these people that are even doing stand up, yeah, people drink, but some people don't drink like that much. And
Yeah.
also, Dizzy Bat was hard when we were 17. Like imagine being like 40 years old playing Dizzy Bat and then having to do like a 5 minute set
Brutal.
afterward. It was chaos. It was
Yeah.
like absolute chaos. And we got through the show. We had a pretty good turnout, but I'm like, I'm never doing this again.
No.
It was just so many moving parts. And somebody almost fell off the stage because they were drunk and dizzy. And that's a liability,
Yeah.
clearly. Especially because it was a big dude, so that would have been a liability for a bunch of people.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it was. But anyway, that was the last time I went down to Austin,
Yeah.
and yeah, I haven't been back since. I think mostly because it just seems like unless you go a lot,
Hmm.
you're really just not going to make any good, like amazing impression down
Sure.
there. My friends that don't live in Austin that seem to be making some headway there live in Houston, so they can just drive there once a week.
Houston's the way. Houston's
Houston's way. Houston's awesome. Like Houston's got. I mean, I know I was just kind of trashing the place, but they have great food. The comedy scene is very good. There's a lot of
Mhm.
comics down there. There's a lot of good comics down there, and they have a lot of independent shows. They have multiple clubs.
Yeah.
It kind of falls off the radar, under the radar a bit because Austin's right
Is
there.
taking the attention. Yeah.
People forget about it, yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I just haven't those are the people that I know that like don't live in Austin that are making some kind of headway there, is because
Yeah.
they can get there quite a bit and be on the mic and get invited back. And if Adam, you could text them and like, hey, can you do something on Thursday, they're like, yeah, it's a couple hour drive, but that's way easier than booking a flight and figuring out all that stuff last minute. So
Absolutely. That's awesome. I'm gonna check out Houston now. I feel like this is like an ad for Houston. Um,
yeah, paid by the I'm being paid by the Tourism Bureau of Houston.
yes.
They
I
always say,
do. Sorry. Go ahead.
they always just say, call it a dump first and then talk about it in nice
Yes.
ways.
That's awesome. I did want to ask because we were kind of talking about like SNL, Kill Tony. What is your dream gig? What is like if you got it, you could die happy. Bucket list dream gig.
Dream gig. I mean, honestly, just being able to sell out shows
Yeah.
anywhere in the country would be pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Uh, I've because I think all that stuff can kind of go hand in hand with other goals and other pursuits.
Yeah.
Where if you wanted to make a TV show or if you wanted to make a movie, and you had the means to do that and kind of keep everything in house, kind of like what Adam Sandler does with Happy Madison.
Yeah.
I think that's amazing. Like
That's awesome.
the guy can do whatever he wants. He
Yeah.
basically just hires his friends. They have their own production studio. Everything's done, like all the scripts and all
Yep.
the tech and shooting and whatever. It's all just them.
Yep.
And he still does stand up. He still does he does like other pursuits like with music and all that stuff. I want to get to a point where I just get to have fun with my friends and we all make a lot of money doing it. I wouldn't
Yeah.
say, hey, after doing stand up for a while, if you got this writing gig and then you had to stop doing stand up a bit, would that be good for you? It's like, yeah, of course. I mean, I would take that, of course, but
Yeah.
I still feel like I love performing live so
Yeah.
much. It's still my favorite thing in the whole world to do, which makes writing scripts and doing sketches and filming stuff like hard for me sometimes because you don't get that visceral reaction of doing something in front of a crowd.
Yep.
Even though I do enjoy those things, it's hard for me to finish a script sometimes because it's so much time just on your own
Yeah.
getting through the first draft before it even like kind of sees the light of day.
Have you done a lot of script writing?
I've written two different pilots, and then I've been stuck
Nice.
on act two of a screenplay for a while. So, like, I already have the whole thing storyboarded out. It's just
Was that
time.
something you taught yourself how to do, like, as far as screenwriting goes, or did you, like, go somewhere and learn that?
No, I mean, I've always been into writing,
Yeah,
so I that's kind of how I started doing stand up. Was I was just writing short stories
okay.
and thought it would be a cool way to get feedback on those sooner
Immediately.
by doing it
Yeah.
on stage.
Yeah.
Terrible idea, bad. To storytelling is very hard, and
Yeah.
especially in like the stand up realm. But it was enough to kind of keep me interested in doing it. But it was just honestly friends, people asking people advice. There's lots of
Yeah.
templates that exist
True.
online for how you're supposed to format it. That's the hardest part, is like formatting it the whole
Literally, I
time.
think that's where it gets so daunting a thing to me because I look at, like, and I'm just like, "Oh god," I feel like I just throw it away because 'cause I'm like, "I don't know what I'm doing."
And they have applications online that make it easier for you to do that. But even that, unless you're pretty well versed with the program, it's
Mhm.
still write a sentence, hit a couple buttons. Oh crap, I forgot how to do that. And then you go to the menu bar and you're like, okay. And then that's just one sentence,
Yeah.
and then especially if there's a scene change or action or anything like that, then you have to format those things differently. So I have, but it's another thing that's just stand up and even doing interrogation as often as I am, it's time consuming.
Mhm.
It's literally just a matter of having resources and having the free time to pursue whatever it is you want to do.
Yeah.
And that's actually been one of the things that I've had to kind of come to terms with over the past year, and I'm okay with it. Is that stand up has kind of taken a little bit of a back seat for me because I've been so focused on interrogation.
Yeah.
I have this other thing that still allows me to be funny, still allows me to perform in front of a crowd,
Mhm.
but I am so focused on that I don't write as much as I used to. I
Yeah.
don't reach out to as many people about booking a Thursday night gig as I
Yeah.
used to, right? I'm trying to be okay with the fact, which I think is really hard for some people to do, because like stand up is their thing, but it's maybe the only thing they've ever really had creative wise.
Yeah.
And they just see that as the only avenue towards success.
Mhm.
But there's countless examples of people that started doing stand up and then got really good at something else, or
Yeah.
something else popped off, whether it's acting or directing, writing. Maybe their social media was the thing that kind of helped them propel their career, and they're not doing stand up as much anymore because they're like more focused on being a social media personality.
Yep.
That stuff just comes up. So it's like, does it bum? As long as it doesn't bum you out,
Yeah.
then that's okay, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes I feel like I get punished sometimes, even in like the Denver comedy scene, just because like I'm not around as much.
Sure.
I'm like I'm just doing other stuff.
Yeah.
So
Which is kind of a
that's
flex to just be out doing other stuff, but still have, like, a regular show at Comedy Works. I think you're in a prime spot. I see, like, what you're saying, but I
yeah.
think you've got it more made than you're making it out to be.
Oh, I know. It's just my own stupid
But
insecurities. I'm a
I
middle
really
child. I've been that way for my entire life.
yeah.
Mostly me being a big coward and just not and
I
just assuming everybody hates me.
no, that's real. I think every comic is like, "Everyone loves me, but also everyone does hate me." So it's, like,
Yeah.
going back and forth on that. I will say I resonated so much with what you were saying as far as, like, stand-up feeling like the only, like, creative avenue where you can, like, see success, but, like, at the end of the day, like, you have bills to pay, and, like, you have to figure out where that income's coming from, and, like, figuring out I feel like for me, it was finding a job that is, like, still, like, tapping into that passion, but that is, like, paying the bills, where it's like for you, interrogated, maybe it's not like exactly it's not you doing but it's like something that is in your passion that is working and
Yeah, and what's
doing well.
strangely enough that I kind of figured out along the way was
Mhm.
that interrogation is actually a combination of three of my strongest qualities kind of coming
Yes.
together. I've always, I've ever since I started doing comedy, I've always been what I would say is a good host. I've always been like a really great host, just because it got drilled into me from early on that
Yeah.
you're going to get booked more if you're a good host,
For
especially early
real, that's
on.
so true.
I know people say it all the time, but it really is true. I mean,
Yeah.
there's lots of times where, especially when you're first starting out, I know a lot of first year comics think they have 60 minutes, but the reality is that you probably have two.
So real.
And yeah, and then that host spot is 10 minutes usually, maybe 15 max, if depending on the show or whatever. But if you don't really have a lot of time, then you should be shooting for the spot on the show that can accommodate whatever amount of time that you actually can do, right? So
Mhm.
and then it goes hand in hand with doing all the hosty stuff and being a good presence and keeping people energized, enthused, all that jazz.
Yep.
uh, I have always leaned towards more storytelling stuff, even in my stand up. The
Yep.
majority of my stand up is stories. And the way I was always the funniest when I was growing up wasn't being the guy that was making the joke, it was tagging everybody else's stuff.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
in a conversation amongst friends, like this, the funniest moments that I would have in that conversation are basically tagging
Yeah.
something somebody else said, even if it
Mhm.
wasn't funny, which is that whole second, third part of the show with the Q&A and the text messages. I always tell everybody, this is your time. Like, I know we're up here with you,
Yeah.
but this is your time to say whatever you want, kind of lead the show,
Yeah.
and then we'll respond to whatever you're talking about or whatever, however you answer a question or whatever. So it's really me just like kind of being a point guard more than
Yeah.
being like the
Uh-huh.
star player on the team. It's like sometimes I shoot the ball. Most of the time I'm trying to pass it and set other people up to do something funny.
Mhm.
So it was just like, and I didn't, it's one of the, I didn't think about that when I first started doing it. I just wanted to run a storytelling show. And then it's just kind of evolved over time, and you realize what you're good at, and maybe some areas where you can improve and make things a little better.
Yeah. That's awesome. You have a lot of, like, I feel like, self-awareness as the things that you like and how to put them together, even if it was unintentional, but
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, you talk to some people, they think I'm the dumbest person that exists. But I like to think I'm pretty self-aware. Some other
yeah.
people think I don't put any thought into anything, and that's not really true. But yeah, I don't know. I try to be. I'm always meticulous. That's
Mhm.
to a fault almost. I am very pragmatic, and I can definitely say that there's different times, maybe in a stressful situation, that people don't appreciate. Is that
Yeah.
I take the emotion out of things completely, and I try to be really good about not being a dick about it, but I
Yeah.
know I probably am
Maybe comes
sometimes.
across. They can deal with
Yeah,
it.
well, I'm just very much like, this is what we have to do.
Yep.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like,
Yeah.
we can cry and whine and get mad about it like all
Mhm.
we want, but
Yeah.
we got to do this.
Real.
The
That's the
boat
truth.
is sinking. We have to we have to get the water out. We have to
Do you
plug the
did you
hole.
come from, like, any military family or military background or anything?
Yeah, my mom was in the army. So
Hello, there it is.
yeah, and my mom was in the army. I always say I have two brothers and a
Yeah.
father, and she's the most. At one point in time, she was the manliest person in our family. So
I believe, yeah. All my
yeah,
family's military, so I get it. The way you were describing that, I was like, there is someone who was in the military that directly took care of this man.
yeah, and plus, growing up Mormon, we just always had a pretty
Oh, that's
strict.
crazy. Yeah,
We had a pretty strict upbringing and not regimented, I would say,
yeah,
but there were rules.
yeah.
Like there were rules that we can't break them, and if you do break them, things are going to go real bad for you real quick.
There will be
So
consequences.
yeah, so you kind of just learn how to do things by the book to a certain degree, or at least just like how to tackle situations, and even for disingenuous ones. Like, I lied a
Mhm.
lot when I was a kid and got away with a lot of stuff because I knew how to kind of the right way to go
Yeah,
about doing something stupid,
doing
if
something
that
bad.
makes
Yes, that's
sense.
so
Yeah,
real. That's so
like
real.
I knew the most practical way to do something bad. Like that.
Yes. Oh my gosh, and now it makes sense why interrogation is a thing. That's
Yeah, that was another part of it too. It's just like I've never been arrested. I've never committed like a
really?
serious. No, I've never committed like a serious crime.
Yeah,
But I did a lot of stupid stuff when I
yeah,
was a teenager, and even probably into like my younger adult years. I've always been very much a beg for forgiveness instead of asking permission kind of guy. I'm
yep.
always trying to, even to this day, I'm trying to see what I can get away with, and then just hope for the best. But again, nothing. I just already had a bunch of stuff that some of which I already tell in like my stand up, and new stories have kind of emerged. And that's another been interesting thing about my writing style and process recently is I'm not writing as many bits as I used to. I'm not
Mhm.
writing like chunks and thinking about it that way. I have like two stories that I've been working on for the past 2 or 3 months, right? And
Yeah,
each one is in their entirety 6 to 8 minutes. And I'm just trying to make each part of those stories better. So
yeah,
instead of tackling an object or an idea, I'm just figuring out how do I make wheelchairs funny? How do I make weddings funny? Because they're a part of this story that I've been working on, and
yeah,
just trying to beef up each segment of that. So it's just changed like quite a bit. Yeah.
yeah. That's I feel like a more organized process, and like breaking it down that way probably is more like easier to digest as a comic to make it better.
Yeah. I don't know. Everybody's got their own thing,
Everyone's so
right?
different. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree.
That's why when anybody ever asks advice, I'm just like, I don't know, man.
Like,
Like,
I
this
don't
is
know
what
what
I
you
do.
talk like.
There's probably going to be something, yeah, whatever's going
Yeah,
to work for you is different than what's going to work for me.
yeah,
And yeah, like I said, storytelling in particular is kind of hard. I had a couple people that gave me some good advice about doing storytelling for stand up a while ago. And I've just tried to follow that framework basically. But yeah, I mean, it's still just a lot of figuring it out as you go. And then I'll just think of dumb things that I just write in my notepad, and I'll try those out, but they don't really go anywhere. Like
yeah.
I wrote this joke about how my brother and my girlfriend's brother they both just recently found out they had diabetes. And I'm just like, oh my God, did Shane and Ryan fuck? Like, is that how? It's so stupid. Like, it's so dumb. Like, that's the thing.
That's the thought process though. You go, how?
I try to go really thoughtful on some
Yeah,
stuff. I'm like, wow, what a crazy story that just was. And
yeah,
then there's other times
absurdist.
where, yeah, it's just so silly and so stupid, which I like. You know, sometimes I wish stand up was more silly and stupid and didn't
Yeah,
have to be so well
yes.
thought out, or wow, what a big left turn. I mean, obviously those things are great, but then I
Yeah.
also want to have room for, like, a lot of what I try to do on stage is just act like an idiot. Like, just act
Yeah.
like I'm stupid. Kinda like Nate Bargatze kind of does that,
Oh,
where
I love
he
him.
plays
Yes.
he plays the fool the whole time, right?
Yes.
And even though he's like a very smart person, and
Very.
obviously everything he does is very well thought out, it's kind of just, I wouldn't say I'm like copying him in that regard, but it's kind of just this. Yeah, like when I say my brother and sister just had a baby, sorry, sister-in-law, I feel like that part's
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
Just doing stuff just like that, it's like intentional. I'm intentionally doing that, but it makes me sound like an idiot.
That's a good joke. I really like that one.
Thanks. Yeah.
That's funny. And it was good. Sorry, this is just me in real time. It was good because I was like, this is like, I thought you were yeah, you got me. You're good. That's funny. I will say I have appreciated having you on today. We are rounding down. We have plugged like your show so much, but like this is your time. If you have social medias you want people to follow, places where people can see your special and follow your show account, floor is yours.
Yeah, all good. So everything on social for me personally is
Mhm.
fake Corey David with a K. And
Awesome.
I mostly just do stuff on YouTube and Instagram. I don't have the bandwidth to do other
Mhm.
things really. You can find tour dates and even interrogation dates at koreydavid.com. And the pages for interrogation, it's just interrogation true crime at interrogation true crime, no spaces, no nothing, or underscores, whatever they are. And packet, that's the word. And and that's YouTube and Instagram as well. So the specials on the YouTube page, and then starting next week, I'm just trying to figure out the right music to mix in with it.
Yeah.
We'll be releasing episodes of interrogation, so
Nice.
it would be like, if we did your set, it would be your story, the Q&A portion that we do with the audience, and the
Mhm.
text messages that we read during your set.
Yeah.
And that'll be one episode. So each comic will have its
Nice.
own thing, like This Is Not Happening,
Yeah.
and that'll start going up next week.
Hell
And
yeah.
Yeah, and then like I said, I have tour dates coming up, and so you can check the website for that. But then the monthly show, and we have the 2 monthly shows. Dude Eddie K, where we film,
Yep.
is the second Thursday of every month, and then the Comedy Works date usually fluctuates between like the third or fourth Wednesday or Thursday. But you can just go to their website, comedyworks.com, and if you're interested in checking that out.
Sick. That was very
Yeah.
clean. And we'll link all of that stuff in the description of this episode so that those listening can just easily access it. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day to come and talk. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. I'll see you around, Korey.
See ya.